Hey guys, in this video, we're going to take a look at a service that I've been running for quite a while on my network. And this is also one of those services that while it's good to have locally, is also maybe a good idea to have hosted somewhere else, say like Linode. So that's what we're going to do. Because Linode is sponsoring this video, I'm going to thank them for their continued support of our channel here. But basically what we're going to take a look at today is a service called Uptime Kuma. As I mentioned, this video is sponsored by Linode. So if you'd like to follow along with this tutorial, be sure to head down to the description where you'll find a link that will give you $100 in free credit to check out Linode free for 60 days. So with all of that out of the way, let's kind of take a look at what Uptime Kuma is and how it works. So if we jump over to my desktop here, we can see that we're at uptime.kuma.pet. That is the official website, I suppose, for their application here. And here it says, we've got Uptime Kuma, a self-hosted monitoring tool. We've got live demo, we've got docs. Here is a Docker command to get it up and running just very, very quickly. We've also got a GitHub page and a status page. So let's actually jump over to their GitHub page here. Here you can see it's all open source. You can see all of the files that are there if you want to dig through that and get an idea of kind of what will be running on your server, which I highly recommend doing if you're at all familiar with code review and things like that. And if we scroll down here, we can kind of get a little demonstration of what this looks like. We're going to kind of skip over that right now because I'm going to show you my instance. But basically, we've got some live server demos here, different features of monitoring for HTTP, HTTPS, TCP, HTTPS keywords, pings, DNS records, push, Steam game servers even, and Docker containers. Now, I started hosting this, like I said, a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago maybe, and I don't remember Docker containers being a thing when I first installed it. So I'm actually kind of stoked to see that. And it's basically just a lot of good information in here on what it does, how it works, those sorts of things. Again, how to install via Docker. We're actually not going to do it this method. We're actually going to use the Linode marketplace to install this. So it'll be very, very straightforward. Below that, of course, we can see once it's installed, you can browse to localhost and go to port 3001 if you'd like to do that. Of course, we've got some different ways to install if you don't want to use Docker. So yeah, definitely check out this link. I'll have everything linked in the description down below so you can check out all of the resources that are available for this project. But now let's take a look at my Uptime Kuma instance here. I will say mine is running in Docker. Not that it matters, but that's how mine is set up. It's how it has been set up. But I may actually decide to go and do something else and actually host this on Linode just so that I can still get notifications about certain things, even if my internet is down. So let's take a quick look at my instance here. We've got our DB Tech status page. All systems are operational. We've got some monitored services here. I've got services and I've got home hardware. You can kind of categorize these, how you'd like to break things up into different chunks so that, you've got services and hardware, or however you want to do that. There's some good information about how to break this up into, like it shows here, some different categories. So we've got DB Tech with a 3. That is the dbtech.com website. Where we've got all of the resources that are available for the different videos that I put resources available for. That was a long way to say nothing. But we've got my Bitwarden or my Vault Warden. That's my password manager. DB Tech here, the second option is for dbtechreviews.com. A couple of ad guards and a YouTube DL option there as well that I'm monitoring kind of internally. And of course, just because I was testing some hardware stuff a long time ago, I put my bedroom TV on there just as a little demonstration to make sure that it would actually be able to ping an IP address and return a value of up or down, as you can kind of see here. All of my services have been up 100% given the time frame that we have allotted here. If we jump over here to settings, there we go. So here is our settings page. This is where we can go in and, change settings for, like the IP address. We can get an idea of response times for pings and things like that. So you've just kind of got a good amount of information here as far as the ping, currently 0 milliseconds, average ping over the last 24 hours, 0 milliseconds. Uptime over the last 24 hours is 100%, and uptime over the last 30 days is 99.98. So pretty good in my opinion. And of course we've got, like I said, the graph down here. We've got kind of another graph up here. We can see the status. We can just go ahead and clear all of the data and start over if we want to do that just by clicking right there. And of course we've got status, date and time, and the message as far as what happened, kind of what would the logs for that particular incident would look like. And of course, I've got, AdGuard 1, AdGuard 2, my bedroom TV, DB Tech with the 3 in there. I skipped Bitwarden on purpose. We've got dbtechreviews.com. Again, here we can see, the response times. Now, like dbtechreviews.com is not hosted by me. That is hosted somewhere else that I have been hosting it there since before I got into self-hosting, and I've been too lazy to move it. So this is why we're seeing some different numbers here, some different response times, the average response times, the uptime. And if we take a look at the uptime over the last 30 days, it's interesting that my uptime on my local server is actually better than the service provider that I've been paying for the last several years. But that's just a way for me to gloat just a little bit to myself. And here we've got a certificate expiration date where it will show you when the SSL cert on that particular domain will expire. Looks like I got 159 days left on that. There was actually a real quick update there in real time. So that's kind of what's going on there. We've got this F5221. That is one of my NAS devices. My ping on that was 1 millisecond, average ping 0, uptime still pretty good, average uptime over the last 30 days still pretty good. So you kind of get the idea of how this works with regards to being able to keep track of different things, whether it's a website, an IP address, a piece of hardware. It kind of gives you an idea of what's going on there. Let's actually go back just to our settings. There we go. Settings general. Again, we can add a new monitor by clicking the add new monitor button right there. And again, we've got general. Just the general information here is what type of monitoring do you want to do it? HTTP, TCP, ping, HTTPS, keyword, DNS, Docker container. We've talked about all of that already when we were looking at the information over on GitHub. Passive monitor type is a push. Steam game servers, MQTT, which I guess a lot of people call Mosquito, I think. SQL Server, PostgreSQL, and a Radius server. You can kind of monitor all of those different things. Of course, if you wanted to monitor multiple things, you would have to set up multiple monitors to fit the criteria that you want. So below that, we can say, we can give it a name like AdGuard1, AdGuard2, Bedroom TV. The URL, in this case, like if I set this to ping, it would change to host name. So some of these things, some of these different entry points or entry boxes are going to be dependent on what kind of monitor you've selected here. So if we take a look at a Docker container, we can get the container name or ID. We can set up a Docker host, which we'd want to do so that it can use the Docker socket to check for certain applications or certain Docker containers to make sure they're up. They need to connect to the Docker socket to do that. So that's kind of what's going on there. Of course, you've got other options on ways to connect to that container to see if it's up or down. So each of these different types of monitoring will have different entry boxes or text field entry boxes so that you can put in the criteria you need to be able to monitor the different services, hardware, whatever the case may be. So let's go back to HTTPS. So we've got a URL that we can put in there. Again, we're monitoring with this. We're monitoring a website URL. So we would put that URL right there. We can decide how often do we want it to check, depending on how critical that piece of infrastructure is to whether it's your home server, your business, your whatever. 60 seconds might be just fine. It may be too frequent. Maybe you want to change this to 300 so that it's every 5 minutes it's going to check. It just kind of depends on how you want to set up your notification system or your, how often do you want to check to make sure that that service is up and running. You can have it retry if you want. Sometimes there's a little hiccup and you don't want to get a notification for a hiccup. So you might have it, try twice before it actually says, oh, this is actually down. So there's just some neat little configuration stuff you can do there to make sure that you're not getting blasted with things if there's, a hiccup, a stutter, whatever the case is there. So here we can say the retry interval. So let's say it tries to hit a URL and it doesn't work. After how long do you want it to try again? It's kind of what it's asking on this retry interval. You might, if it hiccups, you might say, just by default, check every 3 minutes, but if it doesn't respond appropriately, now start checking every minute, just so that you can kind of get to your troublesome services or hardware or whatever a little faster rather than waiting, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the case is. So you can kind of configure how you'd like not only the heartbeat interval check to work, but also the retries to check if there is a heartbeat failure in the system here. So next we've got this resend notification if down X number of times consecutively, I think, or consequently, I think it should be consecutively, but maybe I'm reading that wrong. So basically, if it tries after 300 seconds and it's down, now it's going to try every 60 seconds after that. How many times should it check every 60 seconds before it sends you a notification? Probably 2 or 3, depends on what you want to do there, but you can kind of configure that to your liking as well. You can get certificate certificate expiration notifications. You can ignore TLS and SSL stuff for HTTP websites. With this upside down mode, you can have it only notify you if it's up. So you just kind of get a constant notification that it's up versus being down. So you can do that if you'd like. Max redirects is just if you got a service that kind of redirects from one URL to another. You can set how many redirects do you want to be available, or you can set it to 0 to disable. You can put in your accepted status codes. 200 to 299 are fairly standard. You can add tags for categorization if you'd like to do that. Up here, we've got for notifications. You can set up notifications a number of different ways. And we're going to take a look at a couple of these. Mostly, though, we're just going to take a look at using a Discord server to get notifications. So, but up here, let's start at the top. You kind of get an idea. There's a lot of different options in here, including SMTP. But the thing to know about if you're going to use SMTP on Linode is that you will need to open a ticket with Linode to have them open the appropriate ports because they tend to block email ports by default just to prevent spammers and things like that. So you would just need to submit a ticket to Linode to have them open up the ports you need to communicate with your SMTP server. You know, maybe that's 25 or 587 or 465, whatever the case is. You'll want to make sure that they know which ports to open for your setup. But of course, like I said, here in a minute, we're going to take a look at Discord, getting that set up. We're going to go ahead and close this out. And of course, you can get notified multiple places simultaneously if you'd like to. This is just kind of me messing around with some stuff, trying some stuff out. You can set up a proxy if you need to. You can use HTTP options of get, post, put, patch, delete, head, or options. And of course, put in the appropriate bit of information down below that. And then authentication method, you know, if you need to use some basic HTTP auth, you can put in a username and password for that, as well as, what was it, NTLM, which I'm actually not familiar with. But you've got options for that as well, so that you can, log in to make sure that everything's working appropriately or not as well. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the dashboard, we've kind of navigated around it, kind of gotten ourselves familiar with kind of how it works in a general sense. Let's actually take a look at one of the services and what happens if I put that service down deliberately in this case. Right here, I've got a service that I've got set up as YouTube DL. It's actually MeTube, but that's irrelevant. I switched it. I just didn't change the name. So we can see that I'm doing an HTTPS monitor type here. The friendly name is YouTube DL. The URL is right here. I'm having it check every 60 seconds with 0 retries and just resend is disabled. So it's just a very basic setup here. You know, if I come back over to here, you know, here we can take a look at what that looks like as far as, you know, my response times, current average uptime. We've taken a look at all of this. Here we can see all of the different issues that I may have had over the last little bit with this. So what I can actually do here, if we take a look, here is a brand new email address that I've got set up. What I'm going to do is come over to my other window, and I'm going to stop MeTube. And in fact, if I come over to here, we're going to give this a second. There we go. So now it's down. So here in just a moment, we're going to see a little, this right here should turn red once it's done its check, and we should hopefully get an email simultaneously. So let's actually pull this out of the way, and we'll just kind of hang out and wait. And there it is, right there. That turned red, just like I said it would. And right here it says YouTube DL is down. Error connection refused at this IP address and this port. Time of UTC, I don't have my time zone set up, I don't really care. But just like that, now we've got a notification letting us know that we have a service down. So let's go ahead and start it back up. So now it's back up on that end. Let's go ahead and refresh here, just like that. We're back up and running. Here, of course, we've got our little indicator down there as well. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then we're going to hang out and we're going to wait again for that notification to come back through to let us know that it's back up and running. Okay, so after just another less than 60 seconds, really, we can see that now our little icon right there is green instead of red. And over here, now we've got an email letting us know, hey, your service is throwing a 200 message, which means it's up, which means it's good. And now your service is up and running again. So that kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect with regards to getting messages letting you know that your services are either up or down, depending on how you want to configure each of your different services. So now let's take a look at getting Uptime Kuma set up on Linode. Okay, so to get Uptime Kuma up and running quickly and easily on Linode, of course, the first thing you're going to want to do is get logged into your Linode account. Again, if you don't already have a Linode account, be sure to head down to the description where you'll find that link to get $100 in free credit to check them out for 60 days. What we're going to do is actually just come over to right here where it says Create Linode. And we're going to go to Marketplace, and we're going to do a search for Uptime Kuma right there. We're going to click that. The email address, I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And then below that, we're actually gonna create a limited sudo user so that we don't have to use root to do things while we're messing around. Just so we're not using root, like just for better security practices. So we're gonna go and do that. You can put an SSH public key in here if you'd like to do that. Do you want to disable root over SSH? Yes, that's probably a good idea. And then we're just going to go ahead and skip everything else. The only option right now is Ubuntu 20.04 LTS at the time of recording this video. Next, we're going to select a region. For me, it's going to be Dallas because it's the one closest to me. And then because this is a fairly lightweight application to run, I feel pretty comfortable going over to shared CPU, doing the Linode 1 gig, $5 a month. Should be more than enough for setting up an instance of Uptime Kuma like this. Our Linode label, we can set this up. We can change this if we want to. I'm perfectly fine with this, just saying exactly what it does. Of Uptime Kuma US Central, which tells me what it is and where it's located. I'm pretty happy with that. You can do tags if you want. I'm not going to, but you can. Password, we're going to have to enter a root password. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Again, you can do SSH keys if you want to. That's up to you. Linode has a great amount of resources to show you how to set those up if you'd like to do that. You can do backups and private IPs. Sure, why not? And then once we're done, we're just going to click on Create Linode. It's really just that simple. So we're going to give this a couple of minutes to spin up, do its thing. Once it's up and running, we'll come back and we'll take a look at what it looks like to get logged in for the first time. Okay, so here we are a few minutes later. Even though you may get to a point where it says that the server is up and running, and it's booted and it's running and all that's good, you want to give it several minutes so that it can kind of run all of the stuff that it needs to run in the background before it will come up. Otherwise, you'll just get a screen that says it's not running because it isn't yet. So give it a few minutes, check back periodically as necessary, but eventually what you're going to want to do is go to the IP address that's listed right here on your Linode page, and then tack on port 3001 like I've done there with :3001. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter right there. Like I say, go ahead and continue to the site. That's fine. So the first thing it wants me to do is create an account. So let's go ahead and do that. There are several languages you can choose from if you'd like to do something other than English. So I'm going to go ahead and create my account here, and we'll click on create. And just like that, now we're up, we're running, we're in our Uptime Kuma instance. Now, here's the thing. We are currently running this on an IP address, and that's fine for the demonstrative purposes of what we're doing here. However, you could absolutely add a domain to this and access it via a domain if you wanted to do that. But that's not really what I wanted to show in this service, or in this video, rather, about this service. I want you to manage your domains, your applications the way you want to manage them. But I just really wanted to show this particular service and how to use it. So now that we're here, we've got a few different things that we can take a look at. The first thing that I like to do is actually set up a notification system. So what I want to do is show how to get a Discord notification bot set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the top right where my little initial is. We're going to go to settings. We're going to come over here to this middle column where it says notifications, and then we're going to set up a notification. So we're going to go ahead and click there. By default, it defaults to Telegram. That's fine. What I want to do, though, is scroll up and go to Discord. Of course, there are a lot of different options in here that you can choose from and deploy however you want to deploy. But for the sake of just simplicity, I'm going to use Discord. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to call it my Discord alert. For my Discord webhook URL, what we're going to do is actually open our Discord app. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to right click on my server icon right here, right? And I'm going to go to server settings. I'm going to go to integrations. And then I'm going to click on where it says view webhooks. So I'll click there and I'm going to create a new webhook. And it's called SpideyBot by default, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I'm going to call this Uptime Linode. I'm going to choose my channel. We're going to go over here to bot commands. I'm going to copy the webhook URL and click save down here at the very, very bottom of the page. I can kind of close out of this. And you can actually see that I've got one from a couple of hours ago, hour and a half ago or something. But I'm re-recording this section because my camera thought the wall behind me was more interesting than me. So here we are, right? So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. And I'm just going to paste that Discord webhook URL in right there. The bot display name here, we're going to call this Kuma bot. And we're just going to say, hey, like so. And we're going to set this as the default enabled. That's just the one I want to use for all of the services that I may want to monitor here. And you can also, if you've already got services on your system, you can apply this to all of the existing monitors as well with a simple tick of that box as well. This doesn't matter because I don't have anything set up yet. But I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And then we can click edit. And then let's just go ahead and click on test right there. Test sent successfully. Let's come back over to here. KumaBot, my Discord alert testing. We're good to go as far as Discord is concerned. That's how easy it is to get a Discord bot set up to get notifications about your different services. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize our Discord screen here. And I'll just go ahead and close this out. And so while we're here, we've got a general tab where we can set our time zone. Do we want to allow indexing or not? I would say probably not. This is for search engine indexing, that sort of thing. I would probably leave that off. The entry page will be dashboard in this case. Here in a minute, I will show how to set up status pages. And once we do that, then status pages will be available here as another entry point. But by default, it is just dashboard. You can set the primary base URL if you wanted to do that. We can click auto get and put that in there as well. Again, if you wanted to monitor Steam game servers and things like that, you can put your Steam API key in there. And then if you want to enable DNS cache, you can enable it or disable it via the radio checkboxes there. We'll click save. And now we're good to go. Of course, we can go to appearance. I like dark mode. My system is set to dark mode, or it autoed to dark mode. I'm going to set it very deliberately to dark mode so I don't run into any instance where light mode is an option. Below this, we've got theme heartbeat bar. We're not seeing one, but there'll be those little tick boxes that are either red or green, like we saw earlier. And we have the option of normal, bottom, or none. Basically, normal is what we saw before. Bottom gives us a longer time frame, and then none doesn't show us anything. For notifications, again, we've already taken a look at that. Reverse proxy, if you needed to set up a reverse proxy, here's where you get the information to do that. Again, monitor history. How long do you want to keep your data? 180 days by default. You can save that. You can modify this and click save, obviously. You can shrink your database if it starts getting very large. You can kind of compact it. Or you can just clear all of your statistics all at once. You can add Docker hosts here, by putting in a name, how you want to connect to it. So if this was set up via Docker, you could use the socket. Otherwise, you'd want to use an HTTP call like they show down here. But that's how you would set up a Docker server for notifications for different containers, that sort of thing. For security, you can log out from here. You can change your password by entering your existing password and then entering a new password twice. We can update the password, of course, after that. Setting up two-factor authentication, I absolutely think you should do this. You can click 2FA, put in your password. Let's just do that real quick. And then click enable. And then right there, you'd be able to scan that with whichever two-factor authentication app you want to use and then verify the token, that sort of thing. And then we can disable auth if you want to do that. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Unless, look, I'm gonna caveat that if you were hosting this locally on your own internal Docker server and didn't plan on giving this public access, you could disable the authentication. However, with this being on a public server like Linode, I would not disable authentication on that. So there you go. Proxies, if you needed to set one up, you could. And of course, there is the about information with regards to Uptime Kuma in general. With that said, let's add a service, a monitor real quick. So we're going to do HTTP. Again, there's a lot of options in here. We're just going to do this. We're going to call this DB tech. We're going to do this like so, and then, DB tech.com. Let's do every 60 seconds. We're going to leave all of this kind of as is for the sake of simplicity. We're going to get a notification over here if it goes down. All of this looks good, so I'm happy with that. I'm also going to do one additional one. Here just that quickly, we're already getting a response. That's good. I'm going to add one more new monitor. We're going to call this DB Tech, like so. I know I'm super original with my naming here. Like so, all of that is fine. I'm going to do this. I'm going to click Save. Now, both of these are now up and running. We're getting 200 statuses on those, which means they're functioning appropriately. So what I want to do is actually come over to where it says status pages. We don't have a status page yet, so let's create one. Let's click here. Let's call this, let's just call it DB Tech, right? Because like I said, I am really, really good with my names. I'm going to call it DB Tech, and I'm going to click Save. Oh, I hate this. Switch to dark mode. I don't know why the original settings that we set a minute ago didn't take a place here. Luckily, there is a toggle for that. So you can kind of toggle that back and forth however you'd like to do it. So first thing we want to do is we want to add a group. I'm going to call this, so this will be internal. And I'm going to say DB Tech. And I'm going to add a group, and I'm going to call this external. And I'm going to add a monitor to that. So basically, internal is something that's actually hosted on a server back here behind me. External is that third-party service that I've been paying for years that I should probably quit paying and move everything internal. But I wanted to kind of demonstrate how to set up a full thing here. These are, for a description, I'm going to say these are DB Tech. And then for the footer, hey, why are you looking here? If I could spell looking, that would be great. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and click on Save here. And right there is our IP address, port 3001 status of DB Tech. We've got all systems are operational, external services listed here, internal services listed below. If we wanted to edit this, we could actually do something like create an incident. Nothing, oops, we can say nothing to report. This is just a demo for the tutorial video. And then we're going to say we're just going to say info, and we're going to say post. And then if we go over and click save, now this is what our status page for these particular services would look like. Of course, you can create as many status pages as you'd like and put different types of services on each of those different status reports. Maybe you've got internal services that you want to have one status page for. You've got external services for another one, and maybe you've got game servers on another one. You can kind of mix and match or build your own status pages depending on what kind of services you want to have on each different type of status page. So I really love the flexibility that they've given us with this type of setup here. So let's go back to our dashboard like so. And of course, everything is up and running. We're all green here. This is all good. We can go to our dashboard. We can see we've got 2 services up, 0 services down, no maintenance, nothing unknown, nothing paused. We can open these up and get more information about, response times, average response times, things like that. Of course, these were just added, so they're not going to have a lot of data in them, but you can absolutely kind of, wait and see as this data builds up, more and more information about your servers, your hosting, things like that. So I think that kind of wraps up everything I wanted to show on this service with Uptime Kuma. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you could absolutely put this on a domain if you wanted to, but for the sake of simplicity for the tutorial, I decided to not do that just because everybody's going to handle their domains a little bit differently than maybe how I handled mine. So just something to keep in mind there. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up. It really does help out quite a bit. Also, again, if you'd like to deploy this on Linode, be sure to head down to the description where you'll find a link to jump over to Linode, get $100 in free credit to check them out for 60 days. I'll also have links to everything that you'll need to get more information about Uptime Kuma. Both the website, the GitHub, all of that kind of stuff will be available in the description as well. So definitely check that out. But I think with that said, I want to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for spending several minutes of your day with me today, and I will talk to you in the next video.